starting with the elderly wolf uncle chapter 142. He also began to wonder if what the other party let himself do was worth believing. Damn, how could this be, Nick? After Fury saw Professor Charles's reaction, he was suddenly a little anxious. I didn't expect to be here already. The latter suddenly began to discuperate and began to reject what he asked him to do. The members of SHIELD on the side immediately opened Professor Charles's eyelids and examined his two eyes separately. Head. It should be because the measurement of the illusion fog is not enough. After all, considering that Charles has Alzheimer's disease, plus he is already old, he did not use the maximum dose. The SHIELD member immediately explained. Nick. When Fury heard this, his face turned black as charcoal, and he really spit out a word coldly. But the SHIELD member was a little hesitant. If you increase the dose, I am afraid it will have a great impact on Professor Charles. Quote. His body was too weak, and Alzheimer's would have damaged the brain. If you increase the dose, maybe after this time, he will directly become dementia. Nick. Fury directly ignored the other party's words, wrinkled his brows, and said, plus, don't let me say it a third time. Quote. In his opinion, this action is to eliminate all the mutants in this world, including Chen Tian. And the mutant who is also Professor Charles, Nick. Fury naturally didn't plan to stay either. If you increase the dose of illusion fog, you can turn the former into dementia at the same time afterwards. Wouldn't it be the best of both worlds? So, Nick. Fury didn't hesitate at all. Yes, boss. As for the member of SHIELD, when he heard his own director speak like this, he naturally would not say anything more without being ignorant. He took out the illusion mist again and sprayed it towards Professor Charles. The purple mist rolled and covered the opponent's head, and then was inhaled by him through the mouth and nose. Charles, are you ready? Nick. Fury asked. Professor Charles looked up. Rogan's figure, which had been blurred before in front of him, became clear again, and he no longer doubted what the other party said. Ready, he said. Immediately, Professor Charles put the helmet of the brainwave enhancer on his head. Good, Nick. Fury was overjoyed when he saw this, and went all the way to the machine switch at the door. As for the SHIELD member, after seeing this scene, he very cleverly walked out of the doorway and closed the door by the way. Boom, with the moment the door of the machine was closed. Nick. Fury also turned on the brainwave booster machine. Buzz. Suddenly, the huge white spherical space began to vibrate violently, and white light was transmitted from all the walls. A magical invisible fluctuation immediately emanated from Professor Charles. Yes, you are doing well. Quote. Nick. Fury looked at the perfectly running brainwave enhancement machine and showed a satisfied expression. Go ahead, find out the brainwaves of the mutants that still exist now. Quote. The other side, the convoy escorting Logan and the others had arrived in the basement of SHIELD Huadu's headquarters. Get down, you damn mutants. The members of SHIELD know that the colleagues led by Coulson have been wiped out. Therefore, now when facing Logan and them, they naturally will not give any good looks. At this time, Logan and Laura were both wearing collars that limited their abilities. Except for the bones in the body, which is still hard Edmund metal, the other parts are no different from ordinary middle-aged uncles and little girls. As for Wanda and Pete, they have not yet undergone the experiment with the Hydra Mind Gem and have not yet gained abilities. Now it is two ordinary boys and girls, and there is no power to resist. Several people were rudely pulled out of the car by SHIELD people with their limbs framed. AAA. In the process of being pulled down, Laura also tried to resist, opening her mouth and biting the other person's hand on her shoulder. She bit very hard, directly biting the man's hand through the skin, bleeding a hand. Ah, you fucking beast, the SHIELD member screamed and threw Laura to the ground. At the same time, he couldn't help but raise his foot to step on her. You dare. Seeing this scene, Logan quickly struggled to break free and grab his hand, threw himself in front of Laura, and was blocked. Boom. This kick is clearly aimed at the little girl Laura, but it is still stepped on very heavy. Logan, who was restricted from his powers, was hit hard in the abdomen, and he couldn't help but see the darkness in front of him, and his body shook. Find death. The member of SHIELD immediately became even more angry, and immediately raised his foot to continue stepping on it. Then, don't waste any more time, send him over quickly. Sitwell, who was actually affiliated with Hydra, quickly walked over and stopped the SHIELD member. Yes. Seeing this, the SHIELD member retracted his feet indignantly and smacked him to the side. Meantime, in the office on the top floor of the SHIELD 3 curved wing building. The leader of the branch of Hydra hidden in SHIELD, Pierce is staring at the surveillance footage in front of him at the moment, with a smile on his face. Gee, I didn't expect that the famous X-Men Wolverine and X-23 would be captured by SHIELD. He was excited and couldn't help but mumble in his mouth. Looking back and forth on the screen, Logan who was taken away. Howlett and Laura scanned over. The corners of his mouth that showed a smile rose even more. As a matter of fact, after getting the news that Logan and their capture had been made, Pierce had been secretly happy in his heart. The genes of these two mutants are of great help to their Hydra's super soldier plan. If you can add Wolverine's ability gene to the upcoming super soldier serum, at that time, the finished product effect will definitely be able to go to a higher level. Therefore, as soon as the escort convoy was brought back, he asked his assistant Sitwell to secretly send Wolverine and X-23 away. Of course, from the surveillance screen, it can also be seen. In order to let the news that Logan and Laura were quietly transferred, try to be detected by SHIELD as late as possible. So, together with Wanda and Pete, who were captured with him, they were also transferred away by Sitwell. HMPH, I've been in SHIELD for so long, it's not for nothing. Pierce couldn't bear to think proudly in his heart. And yet, at this time, breath one by one, the airflow outside the 3 curved wing building suddenly became agitated. At this time, Pierce was clearly at the top, but found that countless things were violently slamming on the closed window. Branches and leaves of trees, all kinds of clothes, bottles, miscellaneous small furniture, toys. Like a violent storm, it hit his window one after another. The bulletproof glass window crackled loudly. What's going on? Pierce's attention will naturally be attracted by such movements. He's on the top of dozens of floors now. How can there be so much mess, blown up by the wind? Thinking, Pierce stood up and walked to the window. Look up. Fuck. What the is this? His pupils shrank suddenly, he tightened his brows, and couldn't help but exclaim. First,